everybody. I believe we're live streaming. We'll have some of our folks check that out just to make sure. And if I have to do any technical overrides, we'll go back and do that. But we are recording, and we hope we are on live. We want to welcome all of our listeners tonight, listening by Power Faith Radio. We thank you so much for coming this way. The Georgia group texted me and told me they was there, but didn't say how many they had yet. Maybe they'll text us that here shortly. But it's good to have you joining us tonight through Power Faith Radio. Also, those of you joining us by a Simple Walk Facebook page, we thank you so much. That is an open group, and we ask that you share those videos with all your social media platform and comment, ask questions if you would, and we'd like you to keep the questions pertaining to the topic or the subject of the night, and we appreciate that. Also, if you're watching via B'nai Noach Fellowship, that is a private group. We hope some of you come in that way or watching the recordings later. We thank you so much, and we ask you to do the same, to comment or to ask questions, and we'll try to get into those. And last but not least, this is brought to you by Outreach Noah YouTube channel. We thank you so much. Go on over there, find that channel, subscribe, hit that notification bell that you'll be notified every time a new video goes up, and we will greatly appreciate it. Did I cover everything, Terry?
It sounds like it.
Okay, how about you taking over just for a few minutes?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Well, good evening here in Southeast Tennessee. Let me clarify that because it's, where we are going across the globe now. So it can be morning, evening, night, and somewhere in between. But from Southeast Tennessee, good evening. I'm glad to see everyone here. I guess here also that everyone's here since with the radio stations that we have, and welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Tonight we're going to continue part 2 in the prohibition of murder. As I've been looking into a lot of this, just want to let everyone know that this will be probably a lengthy series. Don't know how long yet, but the next 2 commandments, or this commandment and the next one, the prohibition of murder and prohibition of theft, has a lot of information and details for everyday living for all of humanity. And I don't really want to skip by on just hitting small highlights here and there, because it is so much, and I'll get a little bit more into that when we get into the teaching tonight. I just want to say we are going to be covering quite a bit of information over the next several weeks, actually probably the next month or so, when we're going to be even getting into the prohibition of theft. Covers also a lot. It's probably the deepest of all of the things that the Creator has given us as far as the depth and how broad theft gets into every little aspect of life. And so I'm looking forward to getting into those studies with y'all. How are you doing, Scotty? You're off.
I was muted, so I guess
you got all your buttons you got to push.
I've got all those. I think I'm ready to go. I think
Scotty. Yeah, you're always talking about these buttons that you've got to push. You're down in the engine room, right?
Yeah.
We're not in NC 1701, the first one. We're beyond the D, because in the 80s we had the D. In the 80s we had touchscreen technology before it was even available to us actually in real life. So quit pushing buttons and just wave.
I'm not data.
Oh, you're not. There you go.
So, all right. Well, again, it's so good to have everybody with us tonight. I'd like to thank Ronald. He's going to be doing Amuela's part tonight. She's wore out, and she's going to be resting tonight, so Ronald's going to be taking over her part. And then, of course, we got Thomas, as always, and Veronica, and Chrissy Seaton, and thank you so much for coming. And also my lovely wife, Dolores Ann Helton. Now, you see Annie on there. Now, I call her Honey, and I call her that about 10 times a day. Of course, it's like honey can. Honey, can you do this? And honey, can you do that? So I'll leave that at there. Thank you, honey, for doing that. So, all right. And so it's our Sadaka time tonight, and we don't have any birthdays tonight. We didn't get any birthdays from anybody. I guess over the Western holidays, people didn't send in anything. So you got one, Wendell? What do you got? I seen Wendell.
Yeah, I got one birthday. My son had his birthday.
Tell us your son's name.
His name is Tristan.
Tristan. And
Tristan, yeah, Tris.
Tristan, we're giving Sadaka for your son's birthday. Thank you so much. I feel so much better now that we've had a birthday. So thank you so much. Wendell, did I mention your name when I was mentioning everybody that was in here?
Yeah, you went right up.
You're kindly in the middle, so I went all the way around trying to get to you, but the drain didn't start draining until just then. So Wendell,
that's why I am going down the drain.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And but Tristan had a birthday this past week, giving Sadaka for Tristan tonight. Also, we're going to go right on into those of you we want Connie to put on your cap of prayer, if you would, just to mention them in prayer this week. Of course, Pesach and Shira Sherbo. We're giving Sadaka for them tonight. And then Terry, Dola, and Phil. Now, Phil is Terry's dad. And Terry, can you update us on all that real quick?
Well, I haven't talked to Dad. We've texted a few times, but nothing, about health and stuff. I just know that my brother told me he's just been just real tired and not a lot of energy. He's 76 this year, but the last time I did talk to him, he said he seemed to be feeling better on that. And with me, I have a meeting with my doctor tomorrow to get the results of the scan that I had on my gallbladder. So I'll be getting that information sometime in the morning and see what all the scan revealed and all that. So, and then of course my wife is, having to put up with me.
Okay.
She actually needs more prayer.
We're going to give double Sadaka for her tonight.
She needs double Sadaka. I mean, she's had 35 years. I always tell her I'm the son you never had,
Oh,
so I'm full-blooded, red-blooded Southern American boy. I haven't given up on being 10 or 19.
There you go.
What mood I'm in.
There you go. Well, we're going to give Sadaka for Mike Collins as well. Veronica, have you heard anything about Mike, how he's doing?
I have not, but apparently he's doing really, really well. That's the last that I had heard. Everything was quiet this week. So holidays and stuff. So
yeah. Okay.
But yeah, he's doing fine, and I don't think that we need to worry about it going forward. He's on the mend. Yeah.
Good deal. We're also giving Sadaka tonight for Ramona Perry, and then we're giving Sadaka tonight for Amuela Asher. And the same person that does send that Sadaka in for Amuela sends Sadaka in for Thomas Schaus. You'll see Thomas on the screen tonight. And then also, they also put Veronica Port in that category. So, Veronica, they're sending that Sadaka in for you as well. Also, we're giving Sadaka tonight for Tina Lyons, and asking that she have a healing in her body tonight. Also for Ethelene Moore, and looking for the Creator to do something there with Ethelene Moore. Now, we've got two in our blessed memory list tonight. We have a Geneva Waters. We're giving a blessed memory Sadaka for Geneva Waters. And then this next one, Veronica, you might know who this is. I want to read a little bit here. If I'm pronouncing his name right, Rabbi Moshe Miller of Chicago. Have you heard anything of him? Okay. And he's a Torah scholar, lecturer, and a prolific writer on Kabbalah and Hasidus. And he lived in Chicago, and he passed away Monday. And so I think that's what that. Yes. So we're giving Sadaka, blessed memory Sadaka, for him tonight. Remember, I was in a conversation with somebody today, so I'm going to tell you how I told them to remember this. Charity will change you. It changes your heart. It changes your outlook. The more you give, and it's not the total amount, but the more times you break that down and you give, it does something in your heart to where you become more aware of what's going on around you. And then as you promote charity and challenge other people to give in charity, it will change your community. And once that starts happening, we can change the world. So I'm gonna do our prayer. Thank you so much. Let's hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. Have compassion on us and accept our prayer with compassion and favor. For you are a God who hears prayer and supplications. Our King, do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, are you ready to get started tonight?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to get you on speaker.
I remembered one other thing,
Yes.
and keeping my wife in prayer. One of the things I remembered that I always tell her. See, growing up, my mother used to call me an aggravating youngin'. She said, "You're just nothing but an aggravating youngin'." I have to remind my wife, I'm no longer young. I'm just aggravating.
I can't say too much about that because I resemble that remark.
Oh, like I said, we've been married 36 years this next year. So, it's been a good one. And hopefully, if Hashem allows, we'll do another 36. Of course, I don't know. She may be throwing me out by then. All righty. Again, good evening this evening. Thank you all for putting up with Scotty and I. We just like to have fun sometimes around here. Life's never boring, is it, Scotty? Something's going on. During this cold snap here, Scotty, he worked himself to death, I think. I know you had a bunch of heat and air you had to work on. Do you have any much frozen pipes up there in Knoxville area, Alcoa?
We did have some frozen pipes. We didn't have as many that we had to repair. We kind of got on it real quick. It was mostly heat and air units. But as I tell everybody, that's why I make the big bucks.
A gal I graduated high school with that lives over in Baltimore, she posted today, she goes, "Oh, look how nice the weather is. It wants to be springy and cutie and all this. And last week it tried to kill us."
Yeah. I wore an overcoat and coveralls a couple of days ago. And today I was walking around outside in my t-shirt.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is. If you don't like the weather in East Tennessee, hang around. It'll change in 24 hours.
Yeah. I've got to find that. There's actually a list. There's 12 winters in Chattanooga. They've got names, actual names. And I've someone who was born and raised here told me about it one time. And there was actually a list online here about a couple of weeks ago. And I need to go find that and read that sometime. Cause it's really, you got, your short sleeve, then your pants. And then it's got a list of everything of like what the winter, how many different winters that are here. You go from blackberry to this and then breeches and kind of funny. I need to find that. I need to make me a note so I can remember to do that. All righty, Scotty, anything from last week? We gave an introduction to murder last week. I went through Dr. Michael Schulman's Dr. Michael Schulman's article. It was a really good introductory.
Everything, there was a couple of conversations going on, but I think they took care of themselves. So I think everything's good to go for this week.
All righty. Well, tonight we're going to continue in part 2 I've titled it Blood and Soul because we're going to be getting into some information from Rabbi Samson Hirsch, who I love his teachings and on the scripture, on the Torah, because as I have learned over the years how to study the Torah in the Hebrew and things, he breaks things down. Sometimes he gets into the words, and sometimes he'll chase that word throughout different other places in the Hebrew scriptures, and you'll begin to learn how he brings it all together and how he can get, a more definite meaning in what something is being said. So I really love his stuff. And tonight I'm going to be going through his teachings on the passage that we're going to be covering tonight. As I've said, if you'll hang with us, we're going to be going through a very lengthy series on the prohibition of murder and prohibition of theft. Is very important for humanity, because when you look at when the creator gets involved with the creation in a way, as like, i.e. the flood, Nineveh and Sodom and Gomorrah, theft and murder is at the top of the list when he gets involved. What's interesting, especially in Nineveh, the sages teaches us that he didn't deal with them in their pagan beliefs, and none of their pagan temples came down. What he gets involved with is that when we are in the midst of injustice against each other, when we are treating each other bad, he will, do certain things when we are, idolatry and blasphemy is hard. It's very hard. But when he gets involved, like on a major scale involving humanity, it's when we are treating each other wrong. And murder and theft, because what's more than murder, it's murder and injury, personal injury and theft. When we are involved in these areas with one another, this brings on, the Creator's hand in getting involved in the everyday life of humanity can be in a negative way and in a threatening way. And on a mass with the flood, then we got this, on a citywide scale with Nineveh. Sodom was 5 cities in that plain with everything that was going on. So it's the reason why I'm going to spend some time here, because there's going to be some things I'm going to cover that I'm going to guarantee you that a lot of you that have been following us has not heard. It's not taught in Western religions, especially when I come to the close of tonight, what I'm going to be covering. I'm pretty much going to be guaranteeing that some has never heard it, because I never heard it until I started learning Torah from the Torah sages that has studied this for nearly almost 3,400 years. So let's get going here. We're going to be discussing tonight primarily Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. It says here in the Hirsch Chumash, it says in verse 5, it says, "But your blood, which belongs to your souls, I will demand. I will demand it from every hand of every animal, but from the hand of man and from the hand of being that of his brother, I will demand the soul of man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man." We're going to be getting into these two verses in a little bit more in detail and understanding what is actually being said here. We'll also see here in a few minutes that part of understanding this actually goes back a few verses into another prohibition, what's called Ever Min Chai, the prohibition of eating meat taken from a living animal. And there's some information there that we're going to touch a little bit on tonight, and you'll hear it again when we start going through that prohibition. When he gave us the permission to eat meat, he gave us a direct commandment on how to eat the meat. That's not even really discussed a lot today. And so we're going to touch a little bit tonight because it has a little bit to do with what we're talking about in the situation with murder. Rabbi Hirsch says, in the case of human beings, there is an even greater differentiation between the soul and the blood. And what he's talking about is you go back into 4 and 5. Actually, let's see here. Let me make sure 4 and 5. 3. Yeah, no, 3 and 4. Yeah, 3 and 4. Where it says, for every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. As with the green herbs, I've given you all these. However, you shall not eat the flesh whose blood is still in the soul. And that's what he's talking about here in verse 5. There's some things we're going to learn about the blood and the soul of the animal and the blood and the soul of the human being are not the same. And so that's why he's saying there is a greater differentiation between the soul and the blood with the human being. He said the blood of the animals is in the soul, benephish. There is still an intimate organic connection between the soul and the blood. The blood of man, however, is merely la nefesh, for the nephesh. Not in, it's for the soul. The blood is for the soul in man. It belongs to the blood belongs to the soul. The blood of man, however, is, like I said, is for the soul. It is intended for it and is subservient to it. So we find at the creation. Now we've heard in the past people will say animals don't have a soul. That's incorrect. That's not what the Hebrew actually says. It says in the creation, the animal soul together with its body is formed from the earth. That's in Genesis 1, verse 24. Let me read that to you here from the art scroll. Genesis 1, verse 24. It says, God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures. That's what most English translations will say, somewhere in that realm. Let the earth bring forth living creatures. Here is the issue. That is not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew says, where it says, and God said, let the earth bring forth beings that are alive, or actually in the Hebrew, it is nefesh chaya, living souls. The words here in the Hebrew is for animals is nefesh chaya, living souls. Let the earth bring forth living souls. And so what Rabbi Hirsch is showing us here is that there is an intimate relationship between the soul and the body, because the soul and the body of an animal comes from the earth. But the source of man's soul is not the source of his earthly frame. Rather, God, as it were, breathed it into man, a spark of his own essence. Genesis 2:7. Let me make sure I wrote down that right. Genesis 2:7. Let's go look at that. Genesis 2, verse 7. Oh, went too far. Genesis 2 and verse 7. And Hashem man formed the man of the dust of the ground, and he blew in his nostrils the soul of life, and man became a living being. Man did not get his life from the earth. He got his frame. Our life, our soul comes from the Creator himself. Our souls is a part of him. That's why our souls are eternal, because they are a spark of the divine. Ezekiel 18 and verse 4 says, all souls are mine. This idea that somebody's going to come and steal your soul away is mythology from just mythology. You can't take away what belongs to God. The soul is actually from him. And therefore it's his. It's part of his being. And it's eternal. And that's what we're beginning to learn the importance here about murder. So man's soul is not from the earth. When an animal dies, its body and its soul returns back to the earth. When man dies, our body returns to the earth. Our soul returns to that where it came from, and that's the Creator. Where it says here, however, you look at it, says, however, your blood belongs to your souls. Rabbi Hirsch says here the word is translated, however, is from a root word that literally means I will strike off or exclude. In the preceding verses, which I read 2-4, animals were delivered into the hands of man. Matter of fact, let's go back and look at verse 2. Sorry, I got all my books here. I generally have, Scotty knows I generally have a whole stack of books here. Genesis chapter 2. Verse 4. Make sure I'm in the right place. Wait a minute. Nope. Never mind. It's not chapter 2. I just wrote 2 here. Verses 2 and 4 of Genesis chapter 9. Verses 2 and 4 of Genesis chapter 9. Fear of you and dread of you shall be upon every animal of the earth and of every bird of the sky, and see, of all that moves on the ground and the fish of the sea. Into your hands they are delivered. And I read verse 3, and everything that is moving, every moving thing on the earth shall be food for you. However, you shall not eat flesh with the blood. We're going to be going through these verses again when we get to Evermean Chai. But tonight I'm covering these just for the sake of this, of the understanding of the soul, the difference between the soul and the blood of the animal and the soul and the blood of man. So we have here that in verses 2-4, animals are delivered in the hands of mankind, and man's higher dignity imposes upon him the prohibition of Evermean Chai. And that's one we're going to be talking about later, eating meat taken from a living animal. See, we are allowed to take their meat for our bodies. We are a higher being than them, and the Creator gave them for us as food. But it imposes upon us the prohibition. Because of the taking of the meat, we have a prohibition on how we eat it. And it's also how it's related in the blood. The reason why, the main reason why we are not permitted to eat meat taken from an animal that is still alive, and we'll get more, like I said, we're going to be going through this again, is because the soul is still in the soul is still in the blood. The blood has to be dead. We as Gentiles, those of us nations, we are permitted to eat blood. If you've got meat that's got blood in it, but the animal has to have been dead before you can eat the meat. His soul has departed. We are not allowed to combine the soul of an animal with the soul of man. That's the main part of that prohibition. From that, we also get the laws of taking care of God's creation and not harming it in an evil and wicked way. But the primary issue of not eating meat, other than it's cruel to take meat from a living animal, and we're talking about mammals, not fish, anything like that. We're talking about mammals. We're not permitted to take the meat from there, and we're not allowed to eat it if the animal is still alive, because the soul is still alive in that meat. The animal has to be 100% dead, no convulsion, because the soul has to be departed from that animal and gone back into the earth. Then we're permitted to eat it. And the main reason is we're not permitted to mix the souls of the animal with the soul of man, because we are at a higher status. Our soul comes from God, not the earth. So our souls is a higher level than the animals. Rabbi Hirsch goes and said this higher dignity reveals itself in even a greater clarity that the animal's body, blood, and soul belongs to you. God gave us the animal's body, soul, and blood. They're brought into our hands. And it is at our disposal. The animals are at our disposal. Now, we're not supposed to be cruel, but as far as eating the meat and stuff, as God has said, everything that moves upon the earth shall be food for us. That's giving that to us for our needs and for our purposes of eating, for making clothing with its hides and everything. There's nothing wrong with that because we are the higher being and God created them for that purpose. But your blood, the blood of the human being, this is why we're going to be getting into why a person that commits murder is to be put to death according to God. They are to die. And we'll get more into that here as we get toward the end of this. But your blood, which belongs to your souls, is mine. Meaning is the Creator's. Your blood, which belongs to your soul, the human being, is the Creator's, is mine. It's not yours. He says, I will demand it. Remember right here, it says, he says, and I will demand the soul of man because it's his. It's his. He goes, I will demand it because it belongs to me and it's at my disposal. And I will require a reckoning for every drop of your blood. Our blood and our soul does not belong to us. It is the property of the Creator. Now, the animals is a different story. He gave that to humanity as their property to use them as needed. The special meaning that is translated as word demand means one's property that has been entrusted with someone. You got someone who's going to come and you're on vacation and you've got someone who's going to come and house sit for you. None of that is theirs. They're there to take care of it and to watch over it for you. That property doesn't belong to them. And that's exactly the way it is with us humans. We don't belong to us. You know, you have so many people say, well, this is my body. This is what I can do. No, you can't. You didn't purchase it at birth. You had no control whether you had hair, no hair, if you were, born with defects or what blood type you are, what race you are, what nationality you are, whether you're male or female. You had no choice in that. Someone else did. So that makes you are not your property. And that's what we're learning here. And we have forgotten that in this society that we live in today. It says he's entrusted it. He's entrusted his property to us. He's entrusted it to us. It says entrusted it with someone or that was found by someone to require an accounting of one's property and demand its return. We have no choice when we pass away. God will demand his property to be returned to him at his disposal. When God is talking about this demanding regarding the blood that is consigned to the human soul, he declares that our blood belongs to him. Thus, he denies man the right. God denies man the right to be the master of his own blood. Thus, this implies, first of all, the prohibition against suicide. We don't have that right. So even suicide is not only murder, it's theft. It's taking something that don't belong to you away, that you can't return. Part of the laws of theft is the law of return. And if you take your life, you can't return it. You just stole something that was given from the Creator. God's mold of the rule over the animal world is beyond our understanding. From the animals, God demands an accounting for Dam, the blood of Adam. But from men, he demands an accounting for the soul of Adam, the soul of man. If an animal kills someone, God demands them to be taken out because of the blood, the shedding of the blood there. But God demands, when we shed blood of one another, he demands the soul. He goes in verse 5. He says, but from the hand of man, from the hand of being that of his brother, I will demand the soul of man. Man's duty, as implied by the name of Adam, which we say Adam in English, but Adam, the duty implied by that name, because when he called Adam, it wasn't a name like John Joe Smith. No, it's a duty. It's who he is. Man's duty, as implied by the name of Adam, is to be God's representative and deputy to protect and rule over all the world's creatures in accordance with God's will. Remember, he gave the very first man the duty to guard and to work the garden, which included everything in it. All the plants, all the animals, and then eventually there would be other humans there, but he had the duty to protect even the humanity that would be there. Because he says, and to be a brother of every man. Remember what Cain asked? Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? Well, here we learn, yes, we are. We have a duty to keep the life of our brother intact. It says, and to be a brother of every man, who likewise was created in the image of God. When we protect our brothers, our fellow human beings, we are guarding and protecting the image of God in that person. And them likewise in you. They should be guarding and protecting the image of the Creator within you. Heaven forbid that a man should rise his hand against the holiest and noble of all creatures, another man. The soul, and to raise his hand against the soul of man, as it says here, Nefesh Adam, that we should never raise our hand against another soul. His duty is to be a brother. From the depths of his own self-knowledge, he should recognize that the divine soul within every man. We should recognize the divine soul within every man. And indeed, this is the basis of all humanity. Human relationships are not relationships based on body to body, but they are relationships based on soul to soul. Our duty is to see in every person the soul and the spirit breathed into them by the Creator. Every person is charged with the responsibility of preserving the soul of every other person. Scotty, I see you pop back in. You got something?
Yeah, and I don't really know if you want to cover it now. It's dealing with something that you talked about on suicide. Do you want to cover that now, or you want to?
We will be getting into, as we're going through murder, we're going to be discussing abortion, suicide, euthanasia, and all of these things will be coming up as topics within
Okay.
what we're going to be covering over the next few weeks. Is that okay?
Yes, that'd be good.
Is that satisfactory with everyone?
Yes, I'll watch. Yeah, there was an unusual chat thing to come up on it, and I've heard it before. But let's wait till you bring it up. I mean, they didn't ask the question. I just saw it coming through some chats.
I mean, is there something I need to answer tonight within what we're talking about that might help out?
Well, let's see. I don't want to get you off your train of thought. How about if we go ahead and finish your train of thought, and then at the close.
No, I mean, we're right here at it because we are to be. Yeah, let me go ahead and finish this a little bit, then we can come back. How's that sound?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. Where are we at on our time? Oh, wow. Okay, we're doing good. If one's person causes another soul to depart from this world prematurely, before the time decreed by the Creator, then the Creator will demand the soul of that man who caused the early departure. He will demand the soul because he owns it. Every moment of every earthly existence, of even the most miserable human being, take the most miserable human being going through the most harshest trial in the world, even in their miserable state, the fact that there is life, that the soul is alive, in that existence, it is sacred to God. See, this is a hard concept for us because sometimes, like I said, we're going to be looking at later on in euthanasia. And my own mom passed away colon cancer, and she had a very, very hard death. And you have those thoughts. I want to ease that pain. The issue is, even within the pain, and we're going to learn something at the end that takes some of the bite off from us in these situations, because we've all had loved ones and things like that we're ready to deal with, because we're going to get into euthanasia and mercy killings and things like that. That's the reason I'm going to stay with this for several weeks, because this affects almost everything that we are going through in this society today, no matter what country we live in. But understand, every moment of an earthly existence is sacred to the Creator, no matter how good or how miserable we may see it. The fact that life is alive and living in the flesh, the soul and the blood is living on this earth, is sacred to God. Whoever shortens his own or anyone else's life by even a second, whoever severs the connection established by the blood between the body and the soul, is called into account by God. And see, it's another thing we're going to be looking at, because there's things that we do on a daily basis that we think is funny. I've done it, still do it from time to time, because you've done so much in your life, you don't even think anything about it, because we wasn't raised with this. Even if you cause their life to disappear a second, how can a life just disappear in a second? Just for a second, it's gone. Just for a second. How many times someone come around the corner and you scared the living daylights out of them? We all guilty of that. That's what I'm saying. I've still got some 10-year-old in me. You know, we do stuff like that at work, not thinking about it. But as I was studying for this, when you learn that when you cause someone to draw up in a fear for a second, there's a part of them that for just a second, you just murdered. You just cost their life to stop existing for even just a second. And it says here that even God will call that into account, because he calls every drop. See, these are the things that's so important that we learn this stuff, and so many things that we've got to learn to change. And it'll take a lifetime. And maybe we may not even get some things changed in our life because things become such a part of us. But being aware of this is a major step in the direction in your walk with the Creator. Verse 6, it says, whoever sheds the blood of man, shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. Also in this passage, along with other passages like Genesis chapter 2, verse 16 and 17, we see here what another commandment that is implied here is one of our 7 is the establishments of a just and righteous court and legal system. And so this is the legal system right here. This is a court. The man sheds man's blood, so shall his blood be shed. You just can't take the law in your own hands. There's a court system that God requires us to set up. And there's things that has to be done in a godly order for this to even to be brought out. And the sages teaches us that since we don't have the righteous court systems we have today, many of these things that requires death by God is by the hand of heaven and not by the hand of man. And so though everybody run around, they're going to go set up courts and cut people's head off. No, we are not righteous judges right now that have studied and knows the word of God and the law of God on a very intimate level with God to be able to make such a judgment. So as the Torah sages teaches us, this falls at the hands of heaven. The heavenly court will decide. You know, you might be in a car crash tomorrow and die, or you might, you still might even live to be 80, 90 years old, but he's going to require your life. None of us will ever escape that. And that's what's a beautiful thing here at the end when we get to it here. The purpose of the judicial punishments ordained by the Torah is neither a deterrence nor a repayment in kind. See, that's something that's really interesting. That the judicial punishment ordained by the Torah is not a deterrent nor is a repayment. Precisely, this phrase, which would seem to support a notion of deterrence, proves the very opposite. And Rabbi Hirsch goes through, and of course, it's in the Hebrew of other commandments that's given in the Torah here. But it says, however, the 4 cases are anonymous, and he's talking about the different cases before the court that is brought up, but it's not a deterrent, and it's not a repayment. Let me make sure I read that right. Yeah, repayment of something that you have done wrong. Going through here. This is a whole lot more Torah law. But it said, according to the sages, the punishment ordained by the Torah is neither a deterrent or a repayment of kind. According to the Torah sages, all punishments are, this is so important right here. This is where I was getting at a while ago. And this is something I learned a long time ago. Because of the death of my mom was very harsh, I became a very bitter person at that time. She'll be gone 23 years this next November. And like I said, she had colon cancer and it spread to her brain and just a lot of things. It was horrible. But when I learned this, probably about 15 years ago, according to the sages of Israel, the Torah sages, all the punishments are atonements. You're not to be, people in the Western religions aren't taught this. I wasn't. I'm just going to say, I know I wasn't. And I know several, personally, I know they wasn't. Scotty, you wasn't taught that, was you? They are an atonement. Not atonement for injury done to injustice. It's not an atonement done because justice was injured. But an atonement for the offender himself, when the murderer, when whatever they have done, that the Torah, that God requires their life on earth. Remember, it's an earthly life. It's not an eternal life that God requires. God does not require that. He requires the earthly life to be ended because of his violation. But it's for the atonement of that offender himself. Even those executed by the court, if we had righteous and just courts, according to the Torah, a Torah court system, even among the nations, that will happen in the future. Prophecies show us that. Even those executed by the court have a future that extends beyond the brief span of life on earth. Their death atones for their deeds, and they attain a new existence in a renewed state of purity. I've read the sages say this, that those who die extremely harsh deaths is receiving a major atonement. It is cleansing them of sin and bringing their souls back to purity. And I know that is foreign to Western religion, but this is the Torah, which is foreign to Western religion, because even King David in Psalms 147, verses 19 and 20 said God didn't give the Torah and its commandments and its statutes and its judgments to the nations. He gave them and declared them to the house of Jacob, the house of Israel. That's why we learn this from them. I hate to say this. No, I don't hate to say this. It was an eye-opening thing for me years ago to find out that a lot of my belief system was from mythology mixed with religion. When you get into the Torah and you learn that when the Creator requires that someone who is murdered, their death, they're to be put to death just here on this earth, and God takes their soul, he says he requires the soul of man because he owns it. But that death is an atonement, is a cleansing. And when I began to learn that it is horrible as what my mother went through. And later, I was a very bitter person because my mom was my best friend and I blamed God. And then when I learned that what she was going through was her atonement, that this life on earth was over, and she was going through an atoning process to enter into that next phase of life that will never end, because her soul is the breath of God from the breath of God. And he's cleansing it for its return. And he took the bite and the bitterness that I had away and gave me a new outlook. And so now when you think about it, when we get into these things and you look at euthanasia, you look at mercy killings, oh, someone is suffering, and you cut their life off short, you're cutting their atonement process short. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's hard for us, but it is sacred to the Creator. See, his ways and his thoughts is not ours. We see a human being going through something in the dying process, and we want it to end. And the Creator, he sees that person being cleansed, and he's about to take that person back in his pure form as it came. And we cut that short sometimes. That's why it's wrong. It's not only murder, it's cutting the atonement process of that person short. And then we only know what goes, only the Creator knows what the other side is. Man made in the image of God. This sentence reiterates the higher dignity of the human body and the human life. We have lost in our society the dignity that we see another person is in the eyes of God because of the image of God in that person. I've dealt with some situations over the last couple of months with someone doing some things that I wanted to be very redneck about and take care of it. And then I'm sitting down and I'm studying this, and I'm like, I've been having to do some repenting on my own attitude, because I myself forgot that person I was wanting to take out behind the woodshed was created in the image of God. We have to look at these things. This is how it affects our everyday life. You're mad at a coworker. You're mad at a family member. And I mean, maybe they've done something that you really want to, hear, cap them in the knees or something, teach them a lesson. We can't do that. And that's so hard, especially some of us here in the Southern United States that grows up with, the mentality of men taking care of things that they're supposed to take care of if someone gets out of line. We're not supposed to do that. And that's hard, because we grow up with this stuff. Now we have to learn that's not how God wants us to be. No matter how angry we get at someone, we got to remember that person was created in the image of God. This shows us that the higher dignity of the human body and the human life, it provides the rationale for the entire group of laws, these 7 laws that we have, that God has given us, the nations, all humanity. It's the base laws of humanity. The animal world is assigned as food for man. The animal soul may not be assimilated into the human body. Man's physical existence belongs to God and may not be harmed. We're back to that point again. Part of understanding that human being is created in the image of God comes with the prohibition is keep your hands off of it. It's not yours. And this is what we are learning in this, these 2 verses of Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. This is how important this is. I mean, I could actually even go deeper, and we're going to next week. I'm going to continue discussing this verse a little bit as the sages breaks down the verse and shows different levels of things that I was wanting to get into that tonight. But as I got into studying this, what I've been studying here, I'm like, no, that's just enough. It's a mouthful to even, and a mindful to even think about that God demands the soul of man if we shed another man's blood. The soul belongs to, the body comes from the earth with man. The soul comes from heaven, comes from God. Animals, their soul and their body comes from the earth. It's on a very low level. And therefore God gives us the permission to have dominion over that, from the fish of the air, the animals on the land, and the birds of the air, the animals on the land, the fishes of the sea, the creatures of the sea. All of that is under our dominion. The one thing that is not under our dominion is man. If you look at that, he gives us the dominion there, that we should have dominion over the birds of the air, the lands of the animals of the land, and the creatures of the sea. The one thing he does not give us permission to dominate is man. He is the ruler of man. He will demand your blood, your soul, for your actions. What you do against another man. That's why it's so important that we meditate on these passages here on murder and personal injury that we're getting into. Scotty, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to present this, but I really want you to cover, because it's going to be a large topic, I know. If you can kind of incorporate it in your when you get to the suicide and things of that nature again, is the person's mindset. Let's say they're let's say dementia or things of that nature. Are they counted the same as what you and I, with consideration of a okay mindset?
I will have to take a look at that. I know what it is for Israel, and I don't mean to say that and saying that they get things off a little easier. No, a lot of their stuff is a lot harder than ours. But from my studies, and when I was studying to join the Hebrew Nation, let's say a child that is born with autism, Down syndrome, some other kind of mental disabilities, they are actually how do I put this in words? The Torah requirements that is there for a completely sane person is not for they're not held to that accountability.
Yeah, I know what.
Okay, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they are not. It's like what most people don't understand. Like, in Israel, in the Jewish nation, they have what's called a bar and a bat mitzvah. That means son or daughter. Mitzvah means that when a boy becomes 13 and a girl becomes 12, they become held accountable for the commandments. That's what that is. That is a ceremony of when they're under that age, their parents are responsible for what they do.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I've known a rabbi friend of mine said when his son had his bar mitzvah, he goes, "Oh, praise God, man, I think he's yours now. He's yours."
Okay.
He's a rascal, So even with the young child, they are not held accountable at the same level as an adult is with its full understanding.
Right.
And so you take a person who has a mental issue that it can cause them not to be responsible for their actions if they were sane. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that would not really be fair. You take someone who's, matter of fact, even the sages says, this is what the sages teaches about sin. For you to sin, you have to have a moment of insanity. Because you lost your mind just for that second when you decided, you've made the free choice. But you take someone who has a mental condition, a mental disability. They really don't, in an aspect that thing of free will that God gives us is not operating correctly. But we've all seen our TV shows, and we've heard people when they get depressed, or they, they're tired of living, things ain't right. Maybe, they just lost their house, their car, and their business, and they go and they take their lives. They're held accountable for that, because all of that's replaceable. The human life is the highest level of God's creation on the earth. Everything else is below it. And because the human soul belongs to the Creator, we have no ownership over that. And so we have no right to take it. I hope that helps out with the issue of the mental thing. Because if you're in a mental state of like dementia and things like that, and other mental disabilities, you're not held the same accountability, because you don't have the physical and mental capacity to do, and sometimes to know what is right. So therefore, you're not held at the same level as, say, you and I, who are not in that state.
Right. All right, Terry.
Anything else?
No, I believe that was it. There was some communication going on, but it did not pertain to what you were teaching tonight. But I did make some notes of it. And
did I go through everything okay and clear? Because I know that there was in that little bit, there was a whole lot.
I think you did, and plus, I think as you said, you're going to come back and cover some of this again. And this is more just opening the window, so to speak, so you can get to the door.
Yeah, this is the primary passage. Genesis chapter 9, verses 5 and 6 is the primary passage for the prohibition of murder and personal injury.
Yeah.
And then that's their main headline. Then we're going to now what we're going to do is we're going to go underneath that headline, and we're going to learn what that headline means, what it entails, what is covered underneath that one, because you do this over here, it violates this prohibition. You do this over there, it violates this prohibition.
Yeah.
With Israel, things are broken down to where if they violate certain things, they could be doing 3 and 4 things wrong and be held accountable for 3 or 4 things, where we're held accountable for one thing, that's murder, which includes personal injury.
Right.
And so we're going to learn what this means, and we're going to do the same thing with theft.
All right, Terry, I'm going to make our descent.
Okay.
I do want to welcome Fred, got to come in with us, and also
hello, Fred. Hello.
And Stephen and Bria got to come in and be with us tonight. So we thank you so much. And the Georgia group did text me, and they got 42 with them tonight. So and they just said, good class. Thank you so much, Terry.
How cold did y'all get down? I think y'all south of Atlanta there somewhere, aren't you? How cold did you get down there? I mean, we hit I think 4 degrees one night here.
28. They just said 28 was the lowest.
Oh wow, you had shorts weather.
Yeah.
Compared to us, that 4 degrees was cold.
Yeah. So all right. Well, everybody, we thank you again for coming to be with us tonight. As I said, those of you listening by Power Faith Radio, we thank you so much. Those of you that have joined us tonight at A Simple Walk, my aunt joined us there tonight from up in Michigan, and so we, Ernie and Ella, aunt and uncle. So we're glad they came to be with us tonight.
Howdy.
And are you leaving, Thomas? Was you saying hi to?
No, we're waving hi to aunt and uncle.
Good deal. So and then also we had I think Zakia, and I know I'm not pronouncing that name correctly.
Oh, she's from. Hey, greetings. We hadn't seen you in a while. Glad you was able to join us tonight, Zakia.
She was over on. I think, which one was she on? Well, I done.
I think it was that.
I think she was on YouTube.
I think last time I saw her, she was on YouTube.
Outreach Noah.
Yeah, okay. And also Wendy Shepherd is.
I was going to ask if Wendy was doing okay, if she was able to come tonight. Good to hear Wendy was able to
Yeah.
join us.
So all right, and we're so glad you came and spent some time with us this week. Please, if you can, go back and listen to the recording, the playback, and maybe write down a name of somebody in the Tzedakah list. And the rest of this week, give Tzedakah, pick out a name and go give Tzedakah in one of those names this week. Give charity in one of those names. And without further ado, Terry, are you through?
I just want to mention one thing for Tzedakah. You asked a couple of weeks ago about my coworker that I have, our fellow coworker, Jerry. He has found out he has stage 3 liver disease, and he goes in this next month for a biopsy to see exactly how bad it is.
Okay, we need to put his name back on the.
His name's
Tzedakah
Jerry.
list. Okay. I think that's what we just had was Jerry, right?
Yeah.
On that. Okay. All right, everybody. We will see you next week.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.